Hey everyone, welcome to Part-Time Tabletopper. My name is Adam, and I've got a very cool tutorial for you today. So the first two videos that we made focused a little bit more on scatter terrain, things that were beginner to intermediate depending on which project it was, and I wanted to stay in that same wheelhouse, but I wanted to do something that gave you a place to put everything. So without further ado, we are going to be making these, or these. I actually have 9 of them. The story behind them is that I had a client or a potential buyer reach out to me and ask if I could make them a 3-foot by 3-foot battle board with 1 foot by 1 foot, so 9 tiles, that could be rotated or interchanged to make any number of maps they wanted. So that's what I did, and I was like, this is a really cool project. You could use this not just for that game, but for a D&D or Warhammer game that's taking place in like a city with canals or in a docks district. And I want to show you how to make them, And so whether you choose to make just one of them, which honestly, looking at it with a miniature, even just one is good enough for a scenario. If you wanted to have 4, 9, 12, whatever you chose to do, the method is all the same. I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is take some 1 foot by 1 foot pieces of plywood, which you can see I've already cut down, as well as some 6-inch by 6-inch pieces of XPS foam that I've also cut down. Now, the design for this board is going to be based off of an existing battle mat for the game that I'm making it for. I've just switched a few tiles around. Now, I've already put some tacky glue down on this plywood. I'm going to take these pieces of XPS foam and just very carefully lay them out across the board to make sure that all of the edges are completely flush. That's going to be very important later on when we want all of the 9 tiles to match up evenly. Now, this is just me evening everything out, and then we're going to put some weights on and we're going to wait for it to dry. Now here's what everything looks like when all 9 of them have been made. You can see that around the edges here, there's a couple that are sticking out just a little bit, so I'm gonna go back and even all of that out. But for the most part, everything is lining up exactly flush, exactly the way we want it to be. Now that everything's dry, we're going to take these boards and take some pre-cut pieces of XPS foam that I've cut based on the design that I told you I was using, and we're going to glue these down, and these are going to make the street sections. Also, tacky glue is what we're going to use to put them down. Now, just like with the last sections, it's very important that all of these on the outside edges are completely flush. Again, we want them to line up properly. These interior seams are much less important as we're going to fill them in later, so just do whatever you have to do to line everything on the outside up and make sure it's flush. Now we wait for it to dry. Once it is, this is how everything should look. Now it's time to work on the texture and fill in those gaps. So I'm going to use some air dry clay as well as a texture roller for the cobblestones. Now you can see that I'm going to put my entire body weight into pushing this into that foam because I want that dent from the texture roller, or the indents I should say, to be as deep as possible because that will make painting that much easier later on. Now I've gone ahead and already covered a few of these seams with the air dry clay just to give you a visual, and then you're going to see me going ahead and putting some more on. The idea is that I want everywhere that there is a visible crack to be covered by the clay, which I'm then going to take a roller over just to make sure that that stone texture or the stone pattern blends in with what I've already done into the foam. Also, filling in all of those lower cracks, whether it's with hot glue, this clay, a drywall putty, anything you use, is going to be very important later on when we're going to make our water effect. Once that base coat is dry, we're gonna go in there and seal everything up with the classic mixture of black paint and Mod Podge. Now that everything's sealed, it's time to start painting. We're going to use this neutral gray as a base coat for all of the streets, and this teal as a base coat for where the water is going to be. Then, we're going to go in and paint just a few of the individual cobbles with a pewter gray, a light gray, and a khaki, and then from there we're going to go back and do a dry brush. We're going to do that with that light gray, and then finish it off with the white. Now here's a quick hack that I like to use for my dry brushing on these larger terrain pieces. What I'm using there is a very, very cheap makeup brush. I don't know what it is about these compared to paint brushes, but I've found that for the larger projects, especially when you have very small indents like you do with this foam roller, it just seems to do a great job of evenly dry brushing everything and catching all of those edges. Now normally this is where I would say get out your homemade black wash and brown wash. I tested mine on a small section and I did not like the results. So since this is for somebody else, I'm gonna do something that I don't normally do and use a Nuln Oil and an Agrax Earthshade by Citadel. For a larger project like this, it's going to take a couple containers of each of those to get the effect that I want. But again, since this is for somebody else, I figured I'm gonna go ahead and splurge. Plus, if you look at the board here, where I'm applying the Nuln Oil on top versus where you can see the test I did with my homemade black wash, it's truly night and day. The Nuln Oil is actually bringing out the stone, where the other ones seem to wash it out and hide it. This is just me going back here and cleaning up a few spots where the wash puddled up. Now before that Nuln Oil dries, take some of the Agrax Earthshade and randomly dab it around and then spread it out. This is going to give the stone a much more textured look and also grime it up and make it look dirty. This is what it's going to look like once it's dry, and you can see a couple others that are drying right now. Now I felt like the wash left it looking a little too wet, so you can see here I went back over one more time with that light gray and dry brushed all of the stone. This effect is exactly what I wanted. Now I'm going to show you the easiest way in the world to do resin. Get resin tape, which you're seeing right here. You can buy it on Amazon, and then just a 2-part epoxy resin. Now it's important to note that the resin tape method only works if your edges are perfectly flat. If they are though, this stuff works like a miracle. We're just going to use one long continuous piece and wrap it all the way around the section where we're going to have the water. Make sure all of the possible seams are completely covered in, and make sure the tape is pressed, sealed, and fastened without any air bubbles. Following the instructions exactly, mix your resin together. I'm adding a blue mica powder to mine about halfway through to give it a blue tint, and that's going to work better than an acrylic paint because it'll keep it transparent. Now, very slowly and evenly pour that resin around the entire section where you're going to have water. You don't want it to go on too thick because it's going to dry without bubbles and much smoother when you do it thinner. Follow the instructions of your resin though, just to make sure you're doing it exactly right. Now, you see here that I'm tilting it around to make sure all of those little pockets get covered, and also you can see that the tape's doing its job. Nothing's falling in. When it's dry, it's gonna look like this. Now, we don't want that water to be still, so we're gonna add some water texture to it. Take some Vallejo water texture and just spread it evenly on a pretty good coat all over the entire section where you poured your resin. Then, once that's evenly spread, take a popsicle stick or a crafting stick and just start making wave-like arches all the way across until you have a pattern that you think you're happy with. And here's what it's going to look like once it's dry. The last step is super easy. We're just going to take some black acrylic paint and create a little bit of a border along the edge of every single tile. This is just going to clean it up and make it look nicer when it's on the table. This is also a good opportunity to maybe take some hot glue or some drywall putty and go back and seal up any cracks that you may have missed if you care about that sort of thing. If not, just cleaning up these edges and painting them black is more than good enough for a game table. And that's it. You guys have everything that you need now to make exactly what you see here, whether it's just the one, 12-inch by 12-inch tile, or whether you choose to make 4, 6, 12, 16, however many you choose to make. The possibilities are limitless, especially depending on how many you make. Either way, Really cool project to make a really cool city board. In the future, actually, for the same person that I made this for, I'm going to be making some scatter terrain, some buildings, some docks, some bridges, just pieces to go with it and really bring the entire board together. So when I do that, I'm going to make a couple tutorials for those as well, just so you guys have those if you want to make them to go with your board. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please like the video just because it helps other people find the video and they can do the project as well. And if you want to see more tutorials that I have coming out, because I do have more, please hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time I have something coming out. So in the meantime, happy crafting, happy gaming. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.